another right-wing group purporting to fight against election fraud and to be in favor of election security has been forced to admit that they have no evidence of fraud. True the Vote, the Texas-based election integrity group, had filed complaints with Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger all the way back in 2021. So they alleged there was fraud. In fact, they said that they had a detailed account of coordinated efforts to collect and deposit ballots in drop boxes across Metro Atlanta. And those ballots, of course, are fraudulent ballot harvesting during the November 2020 election and in a January 2021 runoff. So naturally, of course, the state is like, oh, really? Okay, we take this very seriously. So do you have any evidence? That makes sense, right? Most sensible thing in the world. Outrageous claims require outrageous evidence, right? Just to back them up, corroborate them, right? Now, in fact, the Fulton County Superior Judge in Atlanta signed an order last year that required True the Vote to provide the evidence, okay? You say you've got evidence, you're making these charges, why don't you show us? True the Vote says, no, we're not going to do that. So they ended up having to take True the Vote to court in order to have them provide the evidence of election fraud that they're claiming. And so, look, they wanted the names of people who were sources of information. They refused, True the Vote refused to give up the names, saying, well, we promised them confidentiality. Okay, I get it, but if you're going to make these claims, then we need to know who's making those claims and any documentation that you have. And again, they said no. No. And now it's because they admit we don't actually have any of that evidence. In a written response, attorneys for True the Vote said the group had no names or any other documentary evidence to share regarding their claim of voter fraud. So,
whoopsie.
Sorry, we ain't got nothing. Oh, okay, great. And there it is. Now, here's the thing. True the Vote, their allegations of voter fraud in Georgia, for example, were used by propagandists like Dinesh D'Souza and his BS movie 2,000 Mules. Okay, so the right wing, like, oh, have you seen 2,000 Mules? Look at all the evidence that they have. And which it turns out, of course, to not be actual evidence of voter fraud. True the Vote's complaint said its investigators had spoke with several individuals regarding personal knowledge methods and organizations involved in ballot trafficking in Georgia. It said one person, referred to in the complaint only as John Doe, admitted to personally participating and provided specific information about the ballot trafficking process. And so when investigators were like, okay, we would like to speak to John Doe, we would like to know who that is so that we can interview them and corroborate the claims here, True the Vote said, no, you can't have it. You can't have it. So your only evidence right there is this random person who may or may not exist. We can't prove it, right? We can't prove or corroborate anything that they're saying. We're supposed to take that person's word and completely reverse the results of a state election? How about no? And look, that's exactly what the state ultimately said. We're not going to take your word for it, man. All right? You got to give us something concrete or else you got nothing. Now, a state election board investigation found the surveillance camera footage that 2,000 Mules claimed showed ballot stuffing actually showed people just submitting ballots for themselves and family members who live with them, which was completely legal under Georgia law and not at all ballot harvesting or ballot stuffing. The election board had subpoenaed True the Vote to provide evidence that would assist it in investigating the group's ballot trafficking allegations. And again, if you're a serious group about, that really cares about protecting and exposing election fraud and, promoting election integrity, then why wouldn't you work with investigators to expose the truth? You would think that they would want to do that, but no, that's not what happened. again, they refused to share the evidence they claimed to have because they didn't actually have evidence. In fact, the group's lawyer said they had came up empty-handed despite having made every additional reasonable effort to locate the responsive items, specifically documentation and names. In addition to names, the judge had ordered True the Vote to provide any copies of any confidentiality agreements that it had with sources. Again, that was one of their arguments, right? Well, we promised them they'd be confidential. Okay, well, did you have that in writing? No, we don't. Oh. In fact, the group's attorneys forced to admit, quote, TDV has no such documents in its possession, custody, or control. And there it is. They have nothing, nada, bupkis, it's all crap. It's all BS. They had nothing. Raffensperger spokesman Mike Hassinger said on Wednesday, quote, once again, True the Vote has proven itself untrustworthy and unable to provide a shred of evidence for a single one of their fairy tale allegations. Like all the lies about Georgia's 2020 election, their fabricated claims of ballot harvesting have been repeatedly debunked. Now, that said, this is not going to stop the election conspiracy theorists, of course. They don't care about the evidence. They don't care about facts.
Just forget about the evidence.
Okay. They don't want to admit, even though it's been debunked so many times, they don't want to admit the reality. They don't want to believe it. And it's because they prefer the warm comfort of their lie that they actually won and were somehow cheated out of it than the harsh, cold truth that they lost.